and Janelle Riley begins by also asking how he found out about the Emmy nom.
I was on set. We were filming, working on this new movie called A Different Man, and we were filming, and I actually thought, you know what, it's probably a good thing to be focusing on other things and stuff. I mean, because it's, you're aware of it and whatever. And so I gave my phone to hair and makeup, and we were in the middle, and then we just started the scene. So I didn't actually look at my phone or anything. And we were filming the scene, and I said, well, I'll just look at it after. And then our director, Aaron Schimberg, he was giving us notes for the scene, and he was like, oh, by the way, like, congratulations. And I was like, oh, really? And then he goes, yeah, my friend just sent me a text. You got on? And I said, oh, that's great. That's I'm glad that worked out, but it certainly was a very, it's a surreal moment. I don't have context to compare it to anything because it's never really happened. So for me, but I think certainly it's a very grateful moment. I mean, there was a lot of hard work that went into it, and I know a lot of people kind of gave it their all, with the show, and just approached it as best as we could, and so just to get the recognition of any sort was certainly a good day, a good moment.
I mean, I don't think anyone's surprised, but at the same time, I am not being hyperbolic when I say this is the most competitive category I have ever seen at the Emmys. There are so many amazing male lead performances in limited series or TV movie that, you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. And like the company you're in is mind blowing.
Oh yeah, no, it's, first of all, every category, like, I don't even know how I don't know how it even works. Cause like, it's true. There were, first of all, like White Lotus is an unbelievable show. That was one, I love that show. Then The Staircase, I was obsessed with. I mean, Antonio Campos, who I've known and who I'm a huge fan of. And then I knew that documentary, and I remember like going like, how are we going to be able to sort of, take the story and see it? And again, as soon as it came out, I was obsessed with it. I watched it all the way through. Then there was Dope Sick, and it was a lot of really good stuff. And so like, I don't know how eventually, how it all kind of, how you can really pick from anything really, because there's so much content and so many good things. So it was, I think going into it, certainly like Lily and myself and Rob Siegel and like DV, like I think everybody was excited to talk about the show because we felt good about it, and we really did have a good work experience. So talking about it never felt like a chore, but I think, and we knew that a lot of people had seen it, certainly. But it just was impossible to kind of know what was going to happen.
I mean, you've worked with so many amazing people, but looking at this category, I would be starstruck being in that category. Do you ever have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm doing a scene with Nicole Kidman, or are you relaxed at this point?
No. I almost like had a breakdown the other day, like on this thing that I'm just working on now. I came home, and again, I was like, I don't know what I'm, there's always a moment, I think, of kind of like the good, healthy, uncomfortability that I think should be there. You can't ever really, I think if I just sort of, like I've said this before, if I feel like I totally know what I'm going to do in the scene, or things are really all going to plan, we're making our days, we're getting like the first 2 takes are perfect, then I start to get suspicious. I actually need a little bit of the uncomfortability part. Sometimes like good, accidents happen, or things you haven't planned on, end up happening in a take, and then something real and organic comes out of it. And it's usually that sort of ends up overriding anything you've ever planned. But opposite, I always feel, and I know we've talked about this, when you're opposite somebody who kind of really shows up and starts to push your buttons and challenge you, you're just not going to have a choice to kind of rise up to the challenge. You don't want to be the person that didn't do the work. You don't want to be the guy that's slowing everything down, So that's how I think of it.
I was actually curious if, because Tommy, I'm talking about him obviously both as a person and a character, but for the purpose of this, we'll say as a character, he's such a live wire and he's so unpredictable. Were you able to improvise in character? I don't even know if you see it as improvising. You're just, channeling him at some point.
Yeah, well, fortunately, there was not a lot of improvising. And again, I say, we could have, there was maybe here and there we would, but there actually wasn't, because the writing was so good the way that they had written it. So we just needed to follow the writing basically. And a lot of his inflection and sort of the way he speaks was in the writing. They really got him. And then I think it was just more, for me, it was just more kind of trying to find balance of different colors that, he has sort of, in terms of like the exuberance or the sort of childlike qualities or the sense of excitement that, could also just maybe go a different way depending on the situation. And it's always that marriage of technical with kind of in the moment stuff. But I feel like you need the writing for that, to kind of ground you. Because I think the improving thing, unless you spend 5-6 months like as this person, you-ness will slip into it.
Tommy is, he's at a 10 that he doesn't have anywhere higher to go, that you don't know what he's going to say. And a lot of the stuff he says, it feels like it could be improvised because it feels so in the moment, which is, hard to pull off, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's why I really loved that earpiece that I had for the first time. It was the first time I ever wore this earpiece. And I gotta tell you, it was Jessica Chastain that actually recommended that to me. And she was like, well, because I was asking her, I had questions about her. We had talked at one point. She had just done Tammy Faye, and I was like, hey, I'm playing a real person. Like I'm listening to the voice, I'm doing these things, and there's this energy. And so I was getting some tips, and she had said, told me about this this audio piece. And so that was a great thing for me that liberated me in a way, because it's this tiny piece. And I guess I'd heard sometimes people use it for lines or things, but I just used it to play music. And then I was, and no one could hear it, except for me. And so I just, for some reason, I had music playing all through the scenes as we were doing them. And it really helped my energy because he does seemingly have endless amounts of energy. And then I just recently read he's on this tour. They're on tour right now. And I just read somewhere that he only eats like once a day. And I was like, it's just crazy to me, because I actually did try to eat once a day when we were doing it. And it was not like, I had energy and then I didn't. So
I'm sorry, I need to correct you. She is to be referred to as Oscar winner Jessica Chastain.
Of course. Oh my God. Of course. Yes. Of course. And rightfully so. I actually called that out. I was like, this is going to be the moment for sure. I was like,
really?
I don't know. I thought when I saw that movie, she's always been incredible in everything. It's turned in so many different kinds of performances and stuff. And but yes, 100% Oscar winner.
Just as from heretofore, you will be referred to as at least Emmy nominee Sebastian Stan. In a couple months, maybe that'll shorten.
Yeah. Well, my manager said something like that, and it was sort of funny I guess that's what happens. I don't know. But it certainly is I think, like I said, I'm going to be 40 next month. I've been very lucky to have been working for a while. And, I got out of school in 2005. I was early 20s. And, I think, and then prior to that, I had quite a journey getting to this country and stuff. So it's, you don't get in this business without having a thought of one day being able to have an opportunity to get up and thank, people that have like helped you along the way. Like, that's how I see those moments. It's just, they're rare and they may only happen once or they never happen. It just may never happen. Like, that was the only thought I had, was like, I'm like, this may be the only time, I mean, maybe not, you never know. Like, but the idea of just being able to kind of like, I guess, you have a moment to thank people for things that have happened. And that's it. That's the moment. And so, I guess, like, regardless, it's definitely a special thing,
You always talk about yourself and your career as though you think you've hit your peak and you're on the way down.
I mean,
you're always like, I probably won't get back here again. This might not ever happen, or I haven't been here before. But like, when are you going to accept that you are on an upward trajectory?
You got, well, here's the thing. You got to remember, I'm Eastern European, right? Like, I was raised always to look behind my back. Like, I just, how I was raised, with my mother and stuff, like, where we were, there's superstition. There's things like where you go, you never know, like make sure you seize the day while you can. And so I've never really kind of forgotten that. But I also feel that it's very easy to, like I said, to kind of fall into some sort of an expectation. And I worry about that sometimes. I don't want to ever have expectations about, who told me that, actually? Oscar winner Julianne Moore. Got it right this time. Yeah, because we worked on this movie together, and I remember I recently had to do ADR and for it, and I had seen her, and I said, I'm in regards to the movie I'm shooting right now, I said, I'm doing this thing. It's really different. I'm really terrified about it. And she was like, you just, no expectations. You cannot have expectations. And easier said than done, of course, because we're all human. But I really try to kind of like be like, okay, like keep it to where it's at,
There's that scene where Pam says to Tommy, I wish I could be more like you. And I'm curious if, even as exhausting as he could be, if there was anything you took from playing Tommy that you actually liked, or, being in his skin that I just admired like kind of this weird youthful optimism. I admired his energy. And I think that like he feels things very passionately. There's a lot of things that, I liked about him that I think I would enjoy playing.
Well, of course. I mean, I think you're always looking at kind of, what are you learning here? And there was a lot of pieces to this. I mean, I think it's very tough to when you're playing somebody that's real, because again, you feel I guess responsible or indebted, or in some way, but I think for me, what I sort of felt was a yearning there. There was a yearning there for love and connection and acceptance and love and connection. I mean, I've spoken about this before. He had a really interesting childhood upbringing. You don't really see it in the show, but he talks about it in his book and stuff. And it sounded, again, I'm no therapist here, but my take on it from what I've read in his own book and him talking about it was his childhood was very, he sounded neglected in a lot of ways. His mom didn't speak English. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but his father, and his mother conversed by pictures. That's for a lot of those very formative years, like where a child like is sucking like in every and learning and is developing cognitive like functioning about love and acceptance. And his way of being heard was often banging on pots and pans and like cupboards, which is what led to the drums, and then led to this sort of like need to express. And so I guess I understood that coming from another country and having grown up in this country for a little while with an accent, learning English as I was growing up, and sometimes often coming like up against like not fully being able to communicate things I wanted. Like I got like the need to, hey, like I know I'm not perfect. Like I don't know how, but I know I want this to happen, or I'm trying to say something, or I want you to hear me, and you're not, or I can't connect. But that need for connect, we talked about him a lot. The great Larry Moss, who I work with all the time, who I worked with on this, who, sent me a text when the nomination came, and I was like, I could die happy now if he's the one texting me, congrats, I'm all good, but he would always say to me towards any character, real or not, just remember, where's the need for love? Where's the need for that? Because somehow, there's got to be something there, and so I try to look for those things. And then I guess, again, I don't think every character again has different needs, but I guess for me here, that's sort of one thing that I could really understand is just that sometimes that yearning and not being understood. And look, I've had my fair share of understanding. I just spent an hour and a half before I got on the Zoom with you being followed by 5 paparazzis in an Uber. I had to circle around, just so I could go home, because I don't know if they're going to follow me. They're going to stand at home, and then, you can sell that online, and then somebody else is just going to pop up and be there. And then they're going to, by the way, if I walk, and I remember somebody texted me one time and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why? What's up?" "Oh, I don't know. I just read on Dumois that, you were like upset on the phone." And I was like, "Oh my God." Like I could be like talking to my dry cleaner about I could be like, "Oh my God, I needed to get the suit by 5. You're telling me it's going to be tomorrow?" And then somebody will see me do that, not know what and go to Dumois and say that I'm upset on a telephone. Like it's insane. So it's like, yeah, I can understand like a little bit, like the invasion of privacy aspect. Somewhat, not obviously on their scale, and certainly not on a scale of a woman who's also trying to be a mother and all the other things, right, on her level. But there are real things here, there are real things. And even I say to myself sometimes, I go, "You know what, Sebastian, suck it up. You're lucky, and you chose this profession. You got in this thing. So you deal with it. Like you have no say. People are, going through all kinds of things." And I return to gratitude, and I immediately go, "You know what, man, this is not on the scale of what's happening in the world and what we have to face in this country and what's going on right now. Like this is nothing. Okay. Like this is by no means a complaint that I'm saying here. I'm just simply, I guess when it came to this story, it's interesting, right? Like, it's interesting to see different people's reactions to it, because on a way, it's easy to overlook in a similar way that it was overlooked like 10 years ago in the 90s. And at the same time, it's also very easy to relate, because we're all experiencing a level of that lack of privacy or something, or that invasion of, because that's what social media is. You don't have to be famous. You can post something and then someone can just be like, "You know what? Now it's my property. You're public property now. Here's how I feel about it. Tap, 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 tap." And you don't know where that's coming from. And then you're walking away with the result of that,
You're also being generous, because I do not think actors signed up for this at all. I think actors sign up to be.
You remember in The Godfather Part 2, When Lee when Lee Strasberg tells Al Pacino, that's the scene that plays in my head. When Lee Strasberg tells Al Pacino, "This is the business we chose," and you're like, "Oh God." Well, no, but like again, like there's no, but some things come with it. It's just some things come with it, and I would never like the love of it overrides any of that. But there's something unnatural to that kind of like thing. Like these paparazzis that followed me for an hour and a half, they got the pictures before. It's not like they didn't. Like it was just that was not enough. It was just you got to keep going, and you're like, well, okay, I don't know, like at what point it ends, But that like compared to what they were going through, that's just like not even,
I
Whoa.
just have
Imagine and then there's a kid involved, like, right? Then you see these poor people that have kids like they did, like Pam and Tommy did, like who are trying to walk the baby strollers and stuff. And then you have to block out the face. It's that part of it is a little crazy. But then, then you have, for example, sometimes you have like a little kid who's like, like they just see you and they go, "Oh my God." And then you see that genuine reaction. And then sometimes like you get that because I remember being little and like, seeing people I was seeing in the movies on the street and just kind of being like, whoa, like, and that really helped, kind of inspired me. So we just have to like filter through those things.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but do you see like little kids dress up as you much? Like for Halloween and things?
No, I have. I mean, I always see with Captain America stuff, and then the shields will always pop up, and then once in a while there'll be like a metal arm, but but I've seen, the shields are always the ones that I kind of like, I can spot.
Yeah, because I've seen like, my nephew went as Black Panther, actually went as Killmonger, and he like drew on the beard. Oh, wow, yeah. But I was trying to think if I'd seen many Buckies, but I have to say I have never related or felt more seen than in the finale of Falcon and Winter Soldier, when it was the single guy showed up at the barbecue with that very specific cake that you get from a grocery store. Yes. I brought that cake to so many things. I was like, I know that cake.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that was a really cool scene because we actually were allowed, we improvised some of that scene. Yeah, because we were coming and then it was this long specific shot and it sort of has to like pick up and go back. And then, if you're improvising with Mackie, it's always going to be funny. Like and so I was like, I want to wear the sunglasses. And then I came in and then the little kids were like, I was like, yeah. And I feel like we should have like a little fight. So they let us do that. And then he and I kind of like meander over to the table. And then that was very funny. But I thought it was nice for the character at that point to have felt so at ease finally around family and other people, and for us to kind of see him like that, because that was someone who was socially so anxious and guilt ridden for so many years. So it was a good ending at that point.
When you were talking earlier about you've been talking about Pam and Tommy for a while now. I promised myself I wasn't going to ask you. I was going to try not to ask you any questions that you get a lot. But I am curious if at some point, did you ever get tired of talking about the prosthetic work? So many. And I get the curiosity. I do. And it was such a cool scene and such a window into Tommy's mind. But at some point where you're just like, oh God, people need to stop asking.
I thought it was another sign of why our show was basically proving the point. Because here we go. We're saying that there's a lot of things to that show, and yet that's the scene that I'm talking about that much. Like that's what it's like, so it weirdly to me, it highlighted like that like what the point of the show was sort of like, we've all got this salacious nature to kind of like that it's very easy to kind of like go to that click or go to the thing that pulls you in, and then not think so much of what the other parts of it are. But it's funny in terms of the acting of it. That was, for example, that was one scene where I was supposed to be on ecstasy, and I've never done ecstasy in my life. And I was like, I love this experience, but I'm not doing ecstasy for the first time of my life. So, but I was like, but I need to know like what it's like or whatever. So I was asking people that, you know, had done it and stuff. And then finally I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to that damn earpiece. So I had a tiny little, you know, the little ear thing. And then I was playing all this atmospheric music, like to the side of it. So then I was just like, really, everything was very slow, but, and it worked, you know, it was just, and Craig was very good about, you know, he was always really, he was directing that episode, and he was always very good at just making you focus on the one thing that like unlocks the rest of it, you know, because sometimes you can go into a scene like that and go, oh, you know, it's this and the prosthetic and they're going to say this. And is it like surreal? Is it going to work? Is it not work? Is it stupid? Am I believable? Like you just all, and he was like, you know what? You're just a guy in love, and that's it. You're just like, if you want to get emotional. Like if you're just really learning, like that's it. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in love with this one. Like, and that's that's kind of like what it became. And again, we didn't know if it was going to make it past the editing room, because if it was too much, then I think it wouldn't have been there. But fortunately it stayed. Cause again, I think it helped sort of show the wildness of it. And then if you've read Tommy's book, you can get more scenes like that.
Well, that's the thing. I know people latch onto it because it is, I think you used the word salacious, but it also just like shows kind of how bold and innovative and unique the show itself was, and that it was willing to do different things, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that second episode was such a wild, you know, thing. It was like, I remember reading it and going like, are we really like going to be able to do any of it? Like, it just felt that it was just always cranking up to another level, you know, which is kind of what presumably that trip must have been for them. It was an amazing experience. And then it was one more amazing experience. And then, well, we're going to get married. And then, oh my God, you know, like it just kept. And that's what that episode feels like. It feels like a roller coaster that you're on.
Having just said I wasn't going to ask you about it, I have one more question about it that I'm actually curious. It's a technical question because his penis is voiced by the great Jason Mantzoukas, who just using his voice says so much for me.
Yeah.
Did you have a recording of him already, or was it like somebody off camera reading it to you?
No, it was DV Sentis. He was. He's the one that read it with me. We didn't know who was going to do it at the time. We didn't know who was going to do it. And Rob Siegel did text me like about a month later going like, do you think like Chris Evans would do it? And I was like, don't even go there, Rob. Like, there's no way I'm calling that guy down wherever he is in Atlanta. Like, I'm not even like sending a text to this guy.
Would have done. He had like 2 great cameos last year. He could just do cameos now for the rest of his life.
I know. I'm like, Rob, if he says yes and all that, like, you're just gonna flip the universe like into another stratosphere. Like, we'll never return. Like, it will just be too much almost to handle for any of us, myself included, you know. Oh my God. But
when you saw the final scene with Jason's voice, were you just like, it's
yeah. And again, I was like, when they said that's who it was going to be, I was like, oh my God, of course. Like, that's such a smart, that was such a well thought out, because he is, yeah, it's very funny, and it has, you know, he has the right kind of tone. I mean, it's just trying to rein him back in from going down this cliff, point of no return.
You actually, you referenced the great Larry Moss earlier, and
Yes.
I was curious because it's a name. I mean, I've been hearing that name for years, but I've been hearing it a lot lately. And I'm sort of curious how you found him. Like, was he recommended to you, or, was it an ad in a paper?
No,
you started?
You know what it was? I mean, here's a crazy part. It's like, I found him in 2008. I remember, and a friend of mine, Chris Egan, said to me, and he was like, you know what, you should go. I was like, I have this big audition. It's a screen test for Green Lantern, and it's me. And I was like, I think that was 2008 or whatever. And I was like, it's me, and it's like Justin Timberlake and like Jared Leto and Ryan Reynolds, and I don't think I'm gonna get it. And they were like, well, maybe you should study with Larry Moss. And so like it was actually, that was the audition I'd called him about to help me on the screen test of Green Lantern, which I didn't get. But Larry was like, and I'd heard of him a little bit, and then we worked on that audition, and then of course I bought his book. Didn't get the movie, whatever. And then he and I just continued, and his book was really helpful. Cause again, I went to Mason Groves to Rutgers, I came up on like the Meisner technique, and it was really, really helpful. And it took me a lot of years to kind of understand it. I think it's hard sometimes being an acting student, like when you're 18, 17, you're forming also yourself as a person. And so I felt like I needed a little, I never thought, okay, I'm done. Like I need to keep learning and keep practicing thing. And I think that with Larry really combined, like was very helpful for me. And then he would coach me for auditions. One time I went out for Death of a Salesman with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Andrew Garfield. And I remember I went to Larry and I said, Larry, and Andrew Garfield was already playing Biff. And, but the other brother role was still open. And I said, Larry, it's like, it's Death of a Salesman. Like, this is what it's he, you talk about in your book. And he was like, and we worked on the audition, and right when I had a week to go. And then right as I was walking out his apartment, he goes, you know what? No, I cannot let you walk out of here right now and go to this thing like this. No, you're going to come here dressed as this character every single day at 10 a.m. and we're going to work on this thing for a whole week. And I worked with him for a whole week on that audition. And then I met Mike Nichols at that audition. And he just said to me, he was like, that was great, but you're more like a Biff, and that part's cast. So such a pleasure to meet you. And I was like, you're Mike Nichols, doesn't matter. It was, but again, like that was Larry. And then I worked with him on all the Marvel stuff and basically, worked with him on everything. I worked with him on, I worked with him on this. I worked with him on, obviously on the Pam and Tommy thing. He's been so great, and he's gotten a little bit older. So now I'm always like hanging on to him as much as I can,
I mean, it says so much because you just told 2 audition stories where you ultimately didn't get the part, but you still going back to him. So it shows how good he was that you were so happy with work.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell this to like, younger, like actors when they're asking you about, like, just because you don't get the part doesn't mean it wasn't you didn't give it your all, or you did. But often I feel there's so many pieces to it, and like, and Larry to me became, once I did get the part and then I actually could go work with him for the project, then I really felt like I was getting him 100%, but yeah, auditions, they could go either way. And sometimes, it has nothing to do, unfortunately, with the work and stuff. And I also believe certain things just sometimes don't happen because you're not ready for them to happen, you know. Maybe I just tell that to myself because the way that it happened, I don't know.
I have to ask because it blew up the internet. Is there any progress on your rom-com with Jennifer Aniston?
Yes, I wish. Listen, I found this one thing, and I sent it over there. I sent it to her agent, so I don't know. We'll see.
Really?
I did. I mean, it was something that I thought maybe could work, but you know, again, she'll have to decide that. But I'm here. I'm ready whenever the right thing comes, or whenever she feels there's something right. It would be a dream for sure. That would be awesome.
I'm always telling you to do a rom-com.
I know. I love them.
I've been telling you that for years.
I know. I love them. I mean, there's a few floating out there and I keep looking for them, but it's taking a minute.
I mean, to a certain degree, Fresh was a rom-com.
Yeah. That's one of the things about it that kind of like drew me to it, was that I'm like, it started out so well, like, because I read the script and I knew, and he was like, yeah, just know that the guy starts getting crazy. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I just like went in there looking for the crazy. And then for the first 20 pages, I'm like, this is very funny. And yeah,